I want to talk about something very personal today. I want to talk about my 4 years of smoking addiction. And here I don't want to make smoking an aesthetic, smoking as a cool college story, or smoking as something edgy, but smoking as something that slowly entered my life, took over my body, completely determined my friendships, changed my routines, destroyed parts of my health and my brain, and then stayed with me even after I quit. All because I smoked a lot of cigarettes. For most of my college life, roughly from 2014 to 2018, I was smoking almost a packet a day. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how much money I had, but cigarettes were there every day. They were there before class, before lunch, after lunch, before sleep, after waking up, while studying, while doing nothing, while feeling anxious, while feeling bored, while trying to belong, while trying to feel like someone. And I want to divide the story into few parts. First will be how I started smoking, what it did to me, how I quit, and what happened after I quit. And quitting smoking is not just one dramatic moment where you throw away a packet and become a new person. At least for me, it was not like that. It was messy, it was very embarrassing, it was very lonely. And honestly, even now, after all these years, it is still not completely over. So I will start my story. I started smoking in college actually. I joined college in 2014, and the kind of campus culture I entered had this very strong idea that smoking was cool. It was not openly said like that, but you could feel it everywhere. Smoking was almost like an entry pass into a certain kind of group, into a certain kind of clique, a certain kind of intellectual or political coolness. The people I looked up to, the student leaders I thought were interesting, the seniors that I admired, the people who were confident and rebellious and very worldly, many of them smoked. And when you are young, you are 18, when you are entering a new space and trying to understand who you are, you do not know the difference between desire and imitation. You think you are choosing something, but actually you are trying to become legible to others. You are trying to fit in, you are trying to be seen as someone worth sitting with. I also wanted to be cool. I also wanted to be part of the group. A lot of my friends were already smoking, and if everyone is going for chai or tea and cigarettes, you also go for chai and cigarettes. If everyone is sitting in a circle and passing cigarettes around, you also want to be in that circle. At that age, at 18, exclusion feels huge. Belonging almost feels very urgent. And sometimes a cigarette becomes a social passport to enter these kind of groups. And I still remember the first time I smoked. It was Flakes. These were these cigarettes that were very popular in my university at that time. And the first time I tried one, my body completely rejected it. I coughed so badly, I felt like puking. For the rest of the day, I could barely eat anything because my whole body felt violently shaken. It was so disgusting and nauseating, and it should have been enough for me to stop right there. But it was not, because even inside that disgust, there was something else. There was the first nicotine hit, that punch, that rush through my blood. I did not fully understand then. My body was rejecting it, but something in my brain had noticed it. Something had registered the hit. After that, I kept trying one cigarette here, one cigarette there, trying to understand what the feeling was, trying to understand why everyone liked it, trying to understand that high. The funny and the tragic thing is that at that time I barely had money as a student. My family, my mom used to send me around 3,000 to 3,500 a month as college spending money, and I had to manage that carefully for the whole month. Food, small expenses, going out, photocopies, random college expenses, everything had to come from that. But cigarettes started taking away a huge part of that money. Sometimes 2000 or more would go only into cigarettes. That meant I had less money for anything else. I could not do many other things. I had to calculate and adjust, and still somehow the cigarette money would come first. At 18, I understood how addiction works. I did not have the language for it then, because addiction reorganizes your priorities. It teaches you to sacrifice other things. It makes you negotiate with yourself every day. And somehow the addiction keeps winning. And slowly, my friendships also became organized around smoking. Whenever friends went out, it was for chai and cigarettes, chai and smoke, a walk and a smoke, a break and smoke. The cigarette became central to my friendships. We met through it, sat through it, we bonded through it. And because of that, smoking stopped being just something I did. It became part of how I socialized. It became part of how I was known. It became part of my everyday rhythm. By the second year of smoking, I had reached a point where I could not sleep without a cigarette. I needed that nicotine punch to sleep. I needed it after waking up. The first thing I wanted after waking up was a cigarette. A lot of smokers will understand this, but when you smoke on empty stomach, the hit feels different. It is stronger, it is almost violent, and I began to want that. My body began to expect it. At night, the problem was that the shops would close at 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. and I was almost awake late. As a college student, I would need a cigarette before sleeping. But sometimes there would be no cigarettes. Nobody had any cigarettes. Sometimes my friends in the hostel would not have any. And this is one of the most embarrassing parts of the story, but I want to say it because addiction is not glamorous. I had a big ashtray. When I did not have cigarettes, I would pick up cigarette stubs, the one with the leftover filters, the tiny burnt ends. I would try to light them again just to get one hit so that I can sleep. That was the level of desperation. And you would not get the hit with one stub of a cigarette. You would need to smoke around 10, 15 filters, smoke cigarettes to get one hit. I want you to imagine that picking up old cigarettes, lighting them, and inhaling whatever was left just because your body was begging for nicotine. That is the level of dependence I had. In college, I became the guy who constantly smelled of cigarettes, reeked of cigarettes. My clothes smelled of smoke, my mouth smelled of smoke, my fingers smelled of smoke. I was not always aware of it then because smokers stop smelling themselves after a point, but other people know. Other people can smell it. And when I did not have cigarettes with me, I did not have the money, I would look for other people smoking on campus. And some of these people were strangers. I would just go and start a conversation. I would say, "Hi, my name is Akshay. What is your name?" I would say, "Nice to meet you." Then very quickly, I will ask, "Can I get a cigarette?" And if they did not have a cigarette, I would ask, "Can I get a puff?" That was my social strategy, and people started avoiding me for it. I became that person, that cigarette guy, the guy who suddenly appears when someone is smoking, the guy who pretends to start a conversation but is actually waiting to ask for one cigarette. And I knew people did not like it. I could feel the avoidance, but even that was not enough to stop me. That is what addiction does to your dignity. It makes you watch yourself become someone you do not respect. And even while watching it happen, you still continue. When I used to go back home in Kerala during vacations, it became another kind of performance. Obviously, I could not smoke inside the house. Once or twice a day, I would make excuses to go out for chai. I would ask for 50 rupees from my mom. And my mom would ask, "Why 50 rupees? What kind of expensive tea are you drinking?" And somehow I would manage to get the money. I would go out, I would drink tea, I would buy cigarettes and smoke, and then return home. But smokers know this. You cannot really hide the smell of cigarettes, especially from parents. Your whole body carries it, your breath carries it, your hands carry it, especially. And I knew if I sprayed some perfume or deodorant, it would become too obvious to my parents. My mother would immediately know something was suspicious. So I came up with this ridiculous method. I would take Center Fresh, that mint chewing gum, break it open, and rub it all over my face and hands so that the mint smell would cover the cigarette smell. That was the extent of hiding. That is the extent of foolishness. But at that time, it felt like strategy. It felt like I was managing the situation. And when I look back now, I can see how absurd and sad it was. I was not managing anything. I was being managed by cigarettes. Cigarettes became my identity. They became my thing. I could not imagine myself without them. I could not live without them. I needed them all the time. And the scariest part is that after a point, I stopped even seeing it as a problem. It just became who I was. Once my father had put around 10,000 rupees in my account, bank account, and told me it was buffer money. It was emergency money. Use it only when needed. Around that time, a cigarette called Ice Burst had become popular. Then I spent 8,000 out of that 10,000 rupees my father gave me buying Ice Burst cigarettes in 1 month. I was so generous also with it. I would give cigarettes to friends because suddenly I had the money. But when I look back at it, it was a lack of control disguised as generosity. It was addiction with money in hand. And for around 4 years, I smoked every single day, before class, after lunch, before lunch, while walking, while talking, while doing nothing. There was no end to it. Everything had a cigarette attached to it. And from day one, I had a cough. I would cough and smoke. Cough and smoke. I went to doctors so many times. And of course, they had told me to stop smoking. After a point, even doctors realized that this guy was not going to stop smoking. They would work around it. They would give medicines or suggest things to manage the cough or the symptoms. But ultimately, nothing could really help me because I was continuing to do the thing that was harming me, harming my body. And I also used to get a slight pain on the left side of my chest. That used to scare me, but clearly not enough. I tried to quit hundreds of times. Sometimes I would quit for half a day. Sometimes I would decide in the morning and smoke by evening. Sometimes I would tell myself that this is the last cigarettes and then go buy another packet. And because most of my friends were also smokers, quitting almost felt impossible. The environment was also not conducive for me to quit. If your friendships are built around cigarettes, then every social moment becomes a trigger. Every chai break becomes a test. Every conversation has this temptation. After about 1.5 years of smoking, it had completely destroyed my oral health. I had my first root canal. My teeth had started becoming yellow. Smoking had really destroyed my dental health. Over those 4 years of smoking, I have had three root canals, which was due to complete damage of my teeth due to smoke. And still, I did not stop. There were times when I was spitting blood almost daily. Still, I smoked. I would spit blood, then go buy another packet of cigarettes. Nothing stopped me. This is the part I want people to understand. Addiction is so severe. Addiction is so messed up. Many people who smoke know it is bad. I knew. Doctors told me. My body told me. My constant cough told me. My chest was yelling at me. My teeth told me. The blood told me. But knowledge does not save you. Sometimes you can know exactly what is happening and still keep doing it. Then came December 2017. I was at home and a friend was visiting Kerala. I was showing him around in the city on my mother's scooter. In one sense, it felt like a perfect opportunity for me because I could take him around, stop at different places and smoke in between. I did not have a lot of money then, so I was smoking this 5 rupee cigarettes called Century. And anyone who has smoked Century will tell you that it is the worst cigarette in the world. It was cheap and it really felt terrible for your body. And while smoking that cigarette in 2017 December, something hit me. A wave of disgust hit me. Pure disgust. I suddenly saw the cigarette. I saw this tiny thing in my hand, this packet, this object, and I thought about how much this was controlling my life, my living, my body. I was literally coughing blood. My day was structured around it. My sleep depended on it. My friendships depended on it. My body depended on it. My money was completely there. My lives were built around it. My shame was built around it. And this wave of disgust, it's not even a wave, a tsunami of disgust hit me at that moment. I felt disgusted at what I was becoming. I thought about the people who had started avoiding me because I would only come near them for cigarettes. I thought about how I was dependent on the money my mother sent me and how I was literally smoking that money away. I don't want to universalize this. I'm not saying discuss is the correct method for everyone. I'm not saying shame cures addiction. Shame can destroy people also. But for me, in that moment, disgust did something. It broke the romance. It removed the aesthetic. It made the cigarette ugly for me. And I decided that moment that I do not want to smoke anymore. I was lucky in one way because I had the whole December holiday at home at Kerala. I had 1 month away from college, away from my smoking circle, away from chai cigarette friendships, where I had built this habit. That distance really helped me. But the first few days were so horrible. For the first 3 days, I could not even sleep. I would toss and turn around the whole night. My body was craving nicotine. I was shivering. It felt like I was wrestling with my own body. My mind wanted to stop, but my body was asking for the thing it had become used to. It was craving that nicotine punch. By third day, my vision became strange. It had become almost pixelated. I could not see anything. I had difficulty looking at things clearly. I had mood changes. I was irritable. I was angry and so restless. For around 20 days, I felt emotionally very unstable. For around a week, coming back to my vision was completely disturbed. I could not see anything clearly for one whole week. It was all the withdrawal symptoms happening. It was like my body was protesting against me. After the December holidays were done, then in January I went back to college. My friends could not believe it that I had stopped smoking. Many of them assumed that I would come back to it. Maybe I also feared that I would. And the hardest part was not only the craving, it was the loneliness. Friendships that had been built around cigarettes started changing. People stopped calling me for chai and cigarettes because I was no longer smoking. And the invitations reduced, the casual hangouts and the sitting around reduced. I was not completely alone, but I felt a different kind of loneliness because I realized how much of my social life had been built around a habit. And that really affected me. When people talk about quitting, they usually talk about health. They talk about lungs and cough and stamina, but people do not talk enough about the social grief of quitting. You do not quit a substance, you quit rituals, you quit timings and conversations and versions of yourself, and sometimes even friendships. That was very painful for me. But then slowly things started changing. After around 3 months of quitting, I realized I could taste food better. My taste buds felt like they were coming back. Food tasted really good. Even mess food started tasting better. That itself was shocking. I did not know how much of taste sense I had lost. By the fourth month, I remember standing under the trees and breathing normal air, and it felt like I was almost getting high just by breathing. I felt lighter, my body felt less trapped. Air felt like something I had not truly experienced in years. By the sixth month, I was coughing nonstop. I was starting to spit out black stuff. It looked like tar. I felt like my lungs were trying to clear itself. It was very disturbing, but also strangely hopeful because it felt like my body was trying to return to me. By the seventh month, I could run without immediately huffing and puffing. My chest pain had eased. The left side pain that I used to scare me a lot became less intense. My body strangely felt more available to me. For 1 year, my face started looking different. There was more blood in my face. I felt more active. My face had slimmed down a lot when I had was smoking. My mouth had regained its shape. My teeth looked better. I felt like small parts of myself were coming back to me one by one. But here is the thing I really want to say. It has been more than 8 years since I quit smoking, since I quit cigarettes. And there is not a single day where some part of me does not feel like taking a puff. That is the truth. Even after quitting, that memory remains. The memory of the nicotine hit. My body refuses to forget it. The memory of that relaxation. The memory of being cool and holding that cigarette and inhaling it. The memory of what it gave me, even while it was taking so much away. In the first year after quitting, when somebody near me smoked, I would ask them to blow some smoke on my face just so that I could get some second-hand feeling. That is how much I missed it. I've stopped doing that also, but the craving did not stop. For some people, especially people like me, sensitive people who feel things intensely, nicotine can attach itself very deeply to your body. It becomes a sort of emotional memory. It becomes a stress memory. And I have seen many friends start smoking after a breakup, after failing an exam, after something painful or traumatic, after some stress. And the problem with associating cigarettes or any kind of coping mechanism with stress is that the moment stress returns, the cigarette returns as an answer. Brain starts saying this is what you do when life becomes too much. And I think that is dangerous because life will become too much many times. There will be heartbreak, there will be stress, there will be loneliness and anxiety. There will be days when your body feels uncertain, your future may feel uncertain. And if we teach our body a cigarette is a solution to that moment, then every difficult moment becomes a doorway to addiction. I'm not patronizing you in any way. I'm just talking about my own experience. I'm not making this video as a moral lecture. I'm not here to patronize anyone. I'm not here to say just quit because I know how hard it is. I know what it feels like to stop and still not be able to stop. I know what it feels like to cough blood and still smoke. I know what it feels to spend money that you do not have. I know what it feels like to hide from your parents. I know what it feels like to quit and then feel lonely because your friendships were built around the thing you're trying to leave. I just wanted to share my story here. And I want someone watching this that you are not alone. You are not weak because it is hard. You are not stupid because you know the harm and still struggle. You are not beyond help because you have failed to quit before. For me, the thing that helped was very specific moment of disgust, a moment where I saw clearly that the small object was controlling my life. For someone else, it may be support. For someone else, it may be therapy or medical help or nicotine replacement. It may be a friend. It may be a health scare or it may be leaving a social circle. It may be 10 failed attempts before the 11th one works. But it is possible. That is the only thing I want to say. It is possible to stop. It is possible to return to your body slowly. It is possible for your food to taste better again. It is possible for air to feel lighter again. It is possible for your chest to feel less heavy. And it is possible to build a life where a cigarette is not the beginning and the end of every day, every activity. And even if the craving never fully disappears, even if some memory of it remains, you can still live without obeying it. That is my story. A story of a person who smoked for 4 years, lost a lot himself to it, quit with great difficulty, and still remembers the craving and still craves, but also remembers what it felt like to finally breathe.